In this video, I'll show you how you can set up the Figaf tool to handle your SAP PI to PO migration. So we do have a lot of resources on Figaf about doing migrations, all the different things you need to it. So go to this URL. With the Figaf tool, we do have some interesting thing making it a lot easier. Why do you need an automated tool? Migrations is really time consuming and the amount of value they're creating is fairly limited. So that means it's really a good way to automate as much as possible so you can manage the process easier and get a lot more control about what's happening. It enables you to speed up the migration and lowers the total cost of the project. You can get a better understanding what's going on. You can clean up so you only use what components are actually used, and it lowers the risk of the project and improve the predictability. So when we're talking about migrations, you normally would have a landscape that looks like this. You would have an old PI system, 7.4, dual stack, something like that, and then you have a new system with all the new components on 7.5 single stack, and between them we do have an export. We want to export content from over here, and then we want to transport it in the new landscape, and we also want to configure communication channels the same way from the old to the new one. So that's what we want to do and automate as much as possible. So we have two parts in this migration. First is we want to create test data for our tests and migrations. We want to see that they work. We want to copy the repository objects from the old system to the new system. We want to configure communication channels on the development environment, and then we want to migrate it, the IQ, and configure everything, possibly set up the iFlow also. And then we have the other part, and this is about going in the new landscape, and this is about creating a development and transporting it in the new landscape and running that process. So in this video, I'll cover the following 9 steps that should enable you to get started and create your first migration. So let's get started. First off is we want to get the Figaf tool. And we do get that from the Figaf website, so figaf.com/IRT, and you will get to this page or any other page. You can always try this link up here. You would log in with your username, credential, select the receive marketing. This will allow us to send the webhook and create the license for you. So once you log in here, you will then get an email with link to this page and also a license code that we have generated for you. You need that a little later. So now we have access to it. Here you have something about some manuals, online courses on it. You have a manual about how you can use the tool, what are the different options you have and stuff like that if you want to try everything out on works. Then we can go to the download section and we will download here. So just click download. And this will download, so it will take a little while to download it. And in the meantime, we will just create a folder in our downloads folder where we will add all of these components. Let's delete the last attempt. And in here, we will just create a new, so it's a keep, and we will move this to our new folder we created. We will then need to create a new file for it. So we'll create a new notepad. So create an open notepad is a good way to do it. We will then copy this bat script in to run it. We also have a Java 11 that you can use if you want to use Java 11. Java 11 is kind of recommended since it's not licensed, but if you have a valid Java 8 license, you can use that. Run ERT-bat is a good name for it. Oh. So did I put it somewhere else? So it's in the ERT demo. run ert.bat. And now you have the bat file. Sometimes you can also create it from here and rename it, but then you cannot really edit it because of Windows restriction. So you just run it, and this will then run the application, and it will take 20 seconds to a minute depending on the performance of your machine. It has a built-in database, everything you need for it to run. So let me just... So we can see now it's started after 20 seconds, and what we just need to go into is to go to this URL /ert, and then we can log in. We can create a new user. It will log in with the demo account. So we'll So this is the user that's called super user. So super user has been updated. So next time you want to log in, you obviously want to remember this password. Now we can load license, and you should have received an email with the license key. Let me just find mine. So you just want to say synchronize, and then you get the license and you can start using the tool. Next step is we want to create agents, and let's create the first one together. So we will connect to our D74 system. This is process orchestration. It is 74. We have created user, so it's called ERT agent user. And we have a system ID host here. And only host and port. And for these, it's not virtual. That's just, yeah, if it does not exist anymore, it's not a productive system. Has confidential data is if you have a productive system where you're using confidential data, then you can switch this on. But at least for proof of concept, do not do that. It just adds a little more complexity to it, because then you can only test it on test systems that secured test systems. So it's not really ideal, and if there's decentral adapter engines, that also works. For time zones, we need to select the time zone here of the system, and I think this is GMT +1. We already have the value here, and the P4 port is normally just your normal port +4. The best approach is to use the SAP log module. This will add the SAP logging module on your systems, and then you can use that. If you have an older system, it is not allowed to use there. So what you can do is it will just check it here. So let's see, and we can test. And it says here the adapter is not available on it, and there's this note about where to get it, and the approach you can then use is web scraping. It is not really optimal, but it will work, hopefully. And it has some other performance issues, but for proof of concept, it's okay. You have here the ERT agent module. This is us that have installed a module on the PI system to make it easier to run some of these different things in. We just need to enable GMS configurations that will create a connection and connect to this this port. And that is all we needed to do. So we'll save it. And then we just go here, test connection to see everything works. We can test messages. Now, once we have added an agent, we will need to go to that agent we want to synchronize. And this synchronization will then download all the content from that system, and depending on the network connection, the number of systems you have in the system, it may take a little while to create this. So on this one, it's a pretty small system, so and good connection to it. So here we can see all the different objects that we have. We can see the icons if we wanted to, and stuff like that. So now we have access to see what's going on. Next up is I will create the other systems in my landscape, my test system and the new landscape. So let me just pause and do that. So now I have configured all systems in my landscape for this. So let's go back. So that was download, add agents and synchronize it. Next up is we want to create a landscape, and a landscape is our way to handle how we're going to transport in this. And if we look at our landscape, we need to have one for the old system, one for the new system, and we need to have a migration for the one for the migration part. So let's do that. We have the landscapes up here, and probably it will be moved to configuration. So let's first create our P74 system. It's process orchestration. We want to have the integrated management, and then we will start out with the D74 and the T74. This is dev, QA, and then we can do the same thing for PI75. If we want to have a specific user approve these things, we can select it here. We're using the integrated transport management. This is the Figaf tool that will do the transport instead of CTS Plus. And we'll see some advantages of it, that it will handle everything without you having to be that much involved in it. So we'll save. And now we need to create a migration part. So migration, this is, we then need to select the old development system and the new development system. So it's called it old and new. So now we have created the landscape we needed for our migrations. Next up is we want to create system mappings, and our system mappings is what do we call the different systems. So what's the business objects between the different systems. So if we have system names that change name during the process, we can define that also here. So we will create a new one. We can either download and manage via CSV Excel file, or we can just create our own here. So we got D74, and under this we do have one that's called, just a sec. So let's just do this one, 75. We have the T, and in this they will represent our productive system, T74. So we have D, and this is called P, and the last one is we have sales P, that's called D, that is correct. So now we have mapping between the different systems, and the cool thing about this is once we've created test case, once we're doing our transports, it knows what to call the objects in the new system. So this will also be useful if you're changing names of systems in the process. So that was the system mapping. System mapping and add mapping of business systems. We've added that. Good. Then next up is we need to create a test case on this. And to do that, it is also obviously integrated. So we'll go to our test object here. We will select our old system. And here we have a test case. So we'll create test cases for these three systems. So we'll record messages on it. We will create it and add it to a test suite. So we know we have test suite for sales, for HR, for whatever, or you can say sales or specify business process in a different way. We can extract message information or partner information about these to make it more relevant about what's going on, and we can specify how many messages that we want from this. So this is good. We need to find a new license. So let me just do that and come back to you. So the benefit of having the license server is you can update it yourself. So now we have requesting new license for this. So now we can start, save. And now we have created test cases we can use. If we press play here, it will make modifications in the communication channels of these ICOs. And then it will wait until someone is processing messages on this interface. If you have already added the modules, it's able to listen for the last messages that has been processed. So let's see if anything new is processed. Let me just process some messages. So one cool thing about the tool is we have link here to your PI system. So we can just go here. Just pause. So now we have created this. If we had test cases that were using the SAP log module, we would just have to press poll here to add it. If we have used the EAT agent module, they will just be populated automatically, and you can just press refresh to see it. What we have done now is we have downloaded the different test messages that we have. So we can see here we got some input message. So we got some input here. If we view and edit it, we can see the input here, what the data is. And that's good. So now we have created test cases. We want to run it, so we can create the recording of this. And here it's already mapped what systems this exists on, and we don't need it. So it can see, based on the system mapping you have, where can it otherwise run this. So we have done that. Let's try to run it on. We can specify which system to run it on. Let's do it on our current development system. And we have now run it. We can see the results here. And usually it's pretty quick to go through these, and we can see we're getting some errors here. So if we look at the diff, it's pointing out that there's a problem with this state. We can just click it and ignore it. That means we will not use or not see anything about this state. So if we go back here, we can also do it for the next test case. And obviously these are different ICOs, but in this case, similar messages. So that's why I'm just going to do it for all three. We got the last one here, view results, div. And you could also do this if you had a large lat list. There's also a place where you can edit these things. So now we have figured out how to ignore it. We will just try to run it again on our D74 system to see if everything works out okay. And when we're running it, we have a lot of different options on it. So we can go in here on the agent. We can specify what we want to do when we're recording it. We can specify which items were ignored. This was a part of the message we specified here. If we're using EDFACT messages, there's a lot of information up here. We can decide whether or not we should use modules when we're testing this, if we should use new numbers, and if we should ensure that it was never delivered to the receiver and stuff like that. So we have a lot of goodies for each test case that you can use. So let's go back to the test case, and now we can see everything is successful. So now let's show you how you can create a release and get the migration to work. So we have created a release, and the release is a way to handle the normal way you would deliver integrations or migrations, and you deliver some interfaces first that's not super critical, but just as a way to check everything is working successful. Then you would create away with some other interfaces, and then so forth. So every month or whatever, you will go live with a bunch of interfaces. So wave 1, we can have version number, and we can also have migration. So in our migration, we will select our old system, our new system, and we will select the migration path between these. It is important that we have the integrated transport management system on the migration system and on the target system, because then it will use the Figaf tool for handling the migrations. So now we're ready. We have now created a release, and we can add scenarios to it. And we can specify who's the normal user of this, what are the landscape, if it needs to be different, if we want to create all scenario in one ticket, or we have all in different tickets. Then it depends on your preference. The easiest is to have all in one ticket, but it also adds a little more complexity handling the process along the way. So depending on how much objects these shares, you can decide if you want one versus the other. Then we can add the scenario, and we'll add the scenario from our development system. So that's sales D, it's just 2. And we'll select this all available test cases from it. Say save, and now we have these 2 tickets, and the tickets in the ERT is a way that we register which object has been changed as a part of this. The best way to handle this is to go to the tickets perspective, and now we can see who is in prepared, and we'll manage this. Here we can see all the objects that's a part of this migration. We can see which test cases we have. We can specify to run it on a landscape. So we'll run it on our old system just to make sure everything works as expected. We can check our results, and in a little while it's all compared successfully. So there's some batch jobs that runs to check this out. So now we have checked that it works on our old system. We can now go to develop mode, and that will then update the ticket in the status to develop, and then we can start the transport. And there is some challenges that we are missing, some of these that we need for the transport. And the way we do this is just to click here. It will download it from your PI system. And we take the next one, keep it, and we take the 4th one. So, and that was the one we are missing. And we can then close here. We will just need to restart the application, because we need to add these 3 folders into a libs folder. So we'll create a folder here called libs. Then Java will figure out, hey, we need to add these files to it. And we'll take the last one. And then we can start it up again. And that was the reason why in the tool here we specified path libs. That means it'll just take all the jars from here. And it may sometime also ask for other, I think the other thing is if you're using dual stack recording, then it will also be fetched. And it is up and running, so now we can start the transport. Started successfully. So if we look at our transport, we can then see the different objects we have. We can see the objects for the repository. We can select import. This will then import it on the new development system. and now it's synchronized, making sure it has all the updates of this. Then we can take the next one, which is also the mapping package, and it will do the same thing. Post synchronization, fine. And lastly, we do have this this migration. Here we can see communication channels, what they will be on the old system versus the new system. So if we take a look at this, we can then see what are all the different properties that needs to be there, and we can go in and specify if they need to be different. And I think someone has been in here and migrated this already, but it will then be, if they hadn't done that, you'll be able to pick it up from the old system. So we will then say we can say migrate passwords. It will just do a little more check on finding these passwords. So we'll select import. And now we will then have imported everything on the new system. And something has skipped. And most likely this is just because I have wrong setting for the landscape. So that's most likely the agent where I have configured it, and it should be GMT +2 or something like that. Or maybe it's because we already have these objects on the system. Good. But anyway, it's already configured, and we can go here, we can take our ticket, we can say everything is in the target environment. We can take out test cases and we can then run them on the D system. So we can now test that everything we have done still works the same way. So if we check here, we can see it is the agent test case from the old system run on the new system, and we can view our results. It's error. I think it's just because we haven't copied these over the ignore list, but that's pretty simple to just copy these over, and I think that's also one of the things we will fix in one of the coming patches. But what you can see is we have now run it on the new system and everything looks perfect. We can then resolve this and say, hey, we've done it, everything looks good. We just need to get the transport finished. Let me just set the landscape tickets, or you can sometimes try it again. Okay, just a sec. Yes, that was because I had set it to GMT +1 and we are GMT +2. So that's a synchronization error that we have created an object after it has, or after we expect it to be called. So now we have completed this. We can set it to resolve, and now we can go back to our migration wave. And now we can see we got one ticket here migrated. We obviously need to do the other one the same with the other one. We can then migrate the transport configuration, and this will then take all the paths and URLs from the old system and apply it to the configuration here. And now we have done that, we can then create development tickets, request licenses for this. So we have now got a license to do this, and we will try to create the development ticket again. So now we can see we got a ticket issue number 3 here, and it's a development ticket from number 1. We can see that, and now we can obviously see the same test cases we already have. We can start our transport because obviously now we have tested it on that old system. So now we want to do transport in the new system, and we can see we got our transport here that is coming from the old system. We can send it to approval. Who is approve it? I can approve it you can specify who is able to approve it, and we just need to do that for all the transports before we can import it. And we have the last directory transport, and here, as you probably know, we have the option to configure communication channels, which is pretty important in this perspective, so we can check what's the value of the old system. So here we can see on the old system we used this port, and that was correct in that case, but obviously we need to use number T75 for that particular instance. So we can see here we're configuring the channel. We can also have used a different name if we wanted to in this process. Save. So we have a lot of options to map values differently in the different landscape. And obviously we had already converted the business systems and everything like that. So we'll send it to approval. We will approve it. And now we can just do our imports again the same way. Import all the objects. Anyway, so you can see the import and configuration is pretty fast to handle these things. And synchronization. And obviously that depends on the network latency, performance of it, and stuff like that. But here it's pretty close. And now we will do the configuration, and then now we will have everything moved into our let's see here, maybe that's just because import in progress, still the same problem. Let me just check that one also. So the reason was I had not selected the correct version of the agent, so it was PI 731, and that was what it found out it was supposed to do. So now we can say we have resolved this, so we will set it to resolve, and now this is done. And in here we can see all the objects that we have. We can create a report. Did we run our test results? We didn't run our test, so we can run the test both on the two systems. Let's just do that. So now it will run our test cases on both these two systems, and we can then simply see what is going on for these things. And we have then report we can generate showing what we have done for this specific ticket. So if you wanted to document what was going on in the test case and what you have done, so here you can see who made this, what are the attached objects to this, which test cases do we have for it, and what kind of objects have we transported and when were they imported. So this gives us a lot of ability to see what's going on. And then in our main view, we can then see everything that's going on in the flow. We can see we got one ICO migrated and one in production. So this gives us really a good flexibility and see who has made which changes to our landscape. I hope you enjoyed this presentation and seeing how easy it is to do migrations with these things and what it can make of running your migrations easier. So I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you.